space students out as much as possible. They have removed all unnecessary furniture to maximize social distancing. We have put down Velcro dots on the carpet throughout the building to help remind the students what 6 feet of social distancing looks like. We've also spray painted dots on the playground and sidewalk to help with social distancing during lineup. Mrs. Howell and I spent a day at Swan Valley Elementary School observing their safety protocols. They gave us many wonderful ideas, such as sectioning off the playground into zones, purchasing playground equipment for each classroom, and developing a dot sticker system for sending kids to the lockers so it didn't get too crowded and we could socially distance. We've also added tape down the center of the hallway to provide for one-way traffic. Another challenge has been teaching with students quarantined. Having students receive a second-rate education during a 14-day quarantine is not an option. I've been impressed with how this staff has addressed this challenge. Students have been able to join live from home while the teacher Zooms with them while teaching their in-person learners. They've been able to attend all lessons live while on quarantine. One day, I saw a student carrying around a Chromebook outside at recess. Curiosity piqued. I went to see what was happening. The student told me student X was on quarantine, but they didn't want her to miss recess, so they were taking her outside with them. We've had a couple of teachers that have been quarantined, and they taught from home while a sub monitored the class at school. At first, I wasn't sure about this idea, but then when I heard one of the teachers say, "Oh, everyone's not sitting up straight," and this class immediately sat up straight and started the lesson, I knew we were on to something. A creative staff has come up with creative solutions to ensure all kids are receiving a quality education even while they're on quarantine. Cleaning and sanitizing has been all hands on deck job. The teachers are coming in early to neutralize desks and often spend prep time after school and lunchtime, making sure the classroom is as sanitized as possible. Our coach, librarian, premier subs, lunch supervisors, social worker, and myself have all pitched in to sanitize the computer lab, the gymnasium, the hallways, drinking fountains, and more. It's been a real team effort. The district has done a wonderful job providing us with the resources we've needed. We've installed hand sanitizing stations in every room in the school. We have plenty of PPE throughout the building. We've installed water bottle filling stations. The district has been amazing, helping with every COVID request. It's been a challenge to meet our students' academic needs during the pandemic. I often remind staff and families that normal learning is off the table this year. Lincoln Learning isn't normal learning. Remote learning isn't normal learning. Even in-person learning isn't normal learning. One of the best ways we see how students are progressing academically is NWEA. Our NWEA with results from the fall and some early returns from the winter were very interesting. One thing we noticed was math seemed to be an area where students were hit harder during the pandemic. We noticed across the board at almost every grade level an average of about 3 RIT point drop in the fall compared to previous years. Furthermore, the students were on average 2 to 5 points below their expected growth. We were surprised that the decline was only 3 points. A lot of people on our leadership team were thinking that it would end up being even more than that. We've taken a number of steps to accelerate achievement in mathematics, including Mrs. Howell and myself running an after-school math intervention group for students below benchmark, redeploying our premier subs during remote learning to help with math interventions, and we've been studying professional development during our staff meetings to improve math pedagogy. NWE reading was a success story for Hemeter. Our mean RIT score, as measured by the fall NWA, was actually up 2 RIT points over previous years. Our students were almost exactly on target for their expected growth. We credit this to the strong reading culture that we have established over the past 5 years. We know that the best way to improve reading achievement is to have kids spend time reading. Our Hornets are readers, and they were reading throughout the pandemic. I think reading also lends itself a little easier to remote learning. The Teacher College for Reading and Writing has provided some great videos that we share out to parents regularly on our Facebook page. Hemmeter's had many things to celebrate this year, starting with winning the prestigious National Blue Ribbon School Award in October. This award affirmed what we already knew, that Hemeter is a special place. The award wouldn't have been possible without our amazing teachers, staff, parents, colleagues, and of course, students. We knew going into the school year that kids were going to miss out on some of their favorite traditions at Hemeter. However, we're determined to make it an amazing school year. We've added new traditions, like our weekly brain break with magician Cameron Zavara. Cameron teaches the students magic tricks, promotes character developments, and helps us get out announcements to families and students. We've also added a school-wide STEM day each month of the school year. Every grade takes part in a different STEM challenge on the same day each month. We'll have our first one next week, building newspaper towers. We have additional ones planned for the rest of the school year. We also found creative and safe ways to still hold many of our special days. For example, we were still able to have our book fair. We just had it outside so families could shop. We are moving forward with Spark Day in a more virtual and classroom-focused way. And instead of an ice cream social, we're having an ice cream socially distanced event where Mrs. Howell and I are performing a dramatic reading of our favorite picture books while kids get to enjoy an ice cream sundae. In the building, we've been able to update many building features at Hemeter. This includes new document cameras, active panel boards, water bottle filling stations, and classroom libraries. Teachers were literally in tears last week when over 10,000 classroom books arrived from UPS. COVID has made for a difficult school year, but I want you to know how proud I am of our district and specifically the students, families, and staff at Hemeter. Even though everyone is doing things they never thought they'd be doing when they signed up to be a teacher, librarian, secretary, or principal, they're making the most of it. Hemeter is still a happy place. The teachers and students are smiling and learning and enjoying the time together. The morale is strong and the expectations are high. I thank you for this opportunity to update you about Hemeter. Do you have any questions for me?
Mike, go ahead.
Jim, you used the term premier sub a couple times. Could you explain that?
Yeah, so that was something, it's one of the things that has just been so tremendous this year. It's been such a relief. The district allowed us to hire some subs that are there every day. So they fill the sub jobs in the building when the teachers are out. And then if they're not there and there's not a sub job open in the building, they can help with interventions. They can help as an extra hand. So it's just been a huge relief. Subs are, even in a normal year, nearly impossible to find. But with COVID, I couldn't imagine getting through the school year without the premier subs.
Thank you.
Jim, this isn't a question, but I just want to emphasize what an incredible honor it was to have Hemeter win the National Blue Ribbon School Award. Because of COVID, we weren't able to celebrate the staff and the students and the school and you like we would if this had been a normal school year. But just because we couldn't have a big celebration does not take away from the fact that that is an amazing honor for all the people associated with Hemeter. And we just congratulate you and your staff to the moon. We're thrilled about the award. Thank you.
Absolutely. Jim, I did have a question. You mentioned that there were some, I guess, lower than last fall scores on the math portion of the NWEA, sorry. Seeing as how math is such a sequential subject, and so, I don't want to say deficits, but anything that students might be missing that, I'm sorry, we have a puppy here. He was biting my arm, so I'm trying to fight him off and talk, fight her off. Anyway, my question is, Is there a plan in place to kind of help catch some of that up so that next year or the year after that, the students can kind of be back in line with where they were to continue that sequential math learning?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's one of the things we've been focused on for the last month or so, is trying to address that. So we've been looking at what are the things that we need to do. Having those extra intervention groups have been helpful, that we've been meeting with students after school that are below benchmark. We've also been studying as a staff, professional development series that we signed up for. And we're doing a book read as well, looking at some of the strategies that we really want to emphasize to help catch the kids up. And then our leadership team is talking about, how do we rearrange the schedule? And we're in the middle of NWA winter testing right now. So we want to see what sort of growth we've made this school year and if we're starting to close the gap. And if not, we're looking at maybe adding some minutes to our math instruction each day and taking some of those other subjects that haven't been hit as hard that we've been doing well in, and taking, 5-10 minutes even from those to re-hit some of those math things.
Sounds like a really good time for night school, or perhaps a summer academy. Just
there you go, Marianne. I set them up, you knock them down, right?
Check that box.
Thank you.
Jamie, is that, I think Jim said that they're 3 points down in math. Is that what we're seeing across the district?
Yeah, math seems to be the area that we're seeing more of a learning loss due to COVID from. And so, like Jim talked about, we were doing quite a few things this spring, including bringing in some math PD specifically for intervention and for summer school when kids come into summer school, so that we have some really strong strategies and skills and ways to address that learning loss. So yeah, it seems to be pretty typical, especially at the elementary level, that math seems to be getting where we're seeing the biggest learning loss due to COVID. But we've got quite a few things in the works right now to start to address some of that stuff.
Any possibility of possibly, I think we had talked about before, maybe working with SVSU students who are going into teaching as a possibility of tutoring type thing?
Yeah, they hopefully they have a math and science center, and so that is something that we want to bring in even over the summertime. We're talking about even for a STEM day, which is not the same thing as summer school. But yeah, we want to reach out to the math or the science and math center there at SVSU and see if they have some resources that we could use, such as some of their students. I know some of our schools already have them in the buildings working with kids. I know Sherwood has quite a few SVSU students that are doing exactly that.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, we're going to utilize as many resources in our community as possible. So definitely.
Other questions for Jim? Anyone? Okay. Jim, seeing none, we thank you very much for being with us. You're absolutely welcome to stay with us for the rest of the evening, but we understand if you want to drop off and do other things. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Thank you. Have a good night.
appreciate
Thank
it, Jim.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda are committee reports. Any committee reports this evening? Okay. Then we're up to our student board member report, and Tyler and Molly. For tonight's meeting, we've asked Tyler and Molly to give us an update of what they're seeing, hearing during the first 2 weeks back at school at Heritage. So I'll turn it over to them and let them present their report.
Okay, so since we've been back to face-to-face learning, there have been a lot of students with grievances within the way that the lunchroom is being handled. A lot of students feel like with the change the CDC gave for the guideline for social distancing from the 6 feet to 3 feet, students believe that they should be able to sit more to a table from increase from like 3 to 4, maybe more, just because I pre-COVID, or not pre-COVID, but at the beginning of the year when we were doing hybrid, all the tables were social distance 6 feet. But with that being it basically cut in half, students will be able to sit more to a table, and it'll cause less confusion. As when students are coming to the lunch, it's like a mad dash to get to a table because there's just not enough room in the cafeteria, and students don't want to go into the small gym or the student center because I haven't had to go to the small gym yet, but from what I've heard, it's more crowded and there are less tables and they'll have to sit by themselves. And students also have come to me and talked about how the lunches aren't as filling as they were. And they would like to go back to the lunches pre-COVID, as well as opening up all the lines again, but I'm not entirely sure how well that will function. And back to what I said earlier about the mad dash to the lunchroom, there have also been students who have wanted to go with assigned seating, and so they'll like reserve a seat at the beginning of like a week or something, and they'll sit there or just something like that around those lines. And another thing that students have come to me about are the security guards. A large amount of students don't feel entirely safe with the security guards around the school. They feel like they aren't well equipped to defend the students if an intruder does get into the school somehow. And they also feel like they're more focused on students having their phones out in the hallways or like the ID tags, and not really focused on trying to prevent fights or something from happening. But I don't have enough data to like really create a full report. So I've been planning and getting opinions from around the school to try to create a full report that I can bring to you guys to the next meeting. And I'll just let Molly take over.
Okay, so I'm talking about the like COVID protocols that have been put in place, and one of the things is how the hallways and cleaning are really intertwined, and it's kind of like it's all interconnected. So because the teachers have to clean in between classes, they let us go like approximately 5 minutes early from each class so they can clean before their next class comes in. But for those 5 minutes, all we can do is go and like huddle in the hallways because there's nowhere else to go. So we're all huddling in the hallways because we can't go into our next teacher's classroom because they're cleaning. So that's kind of eliminating all the social distancing in order they're trying to do in the hallways with the lines down the middle and the paths and things like that, because there's nowhere to go except for huddling. And as for the social distancing, there's no way to do 6 feet, but you already knew that going in. But even the 3 feet is really pushing it in some spaces. Like some of my classes have 32 kids in them, and there's no way to fit that many people in a classroom spread out. Along with the masks that I've seen and heard, at least a lot of people are still not wearing them over their nose, and I don't really see anybody fixing it or telling them how to fix it. So it's just happening, and I don't think there's really anything going on to try and fix that or spread awareness about how to actually wear it properly.
Anybody have any questions for Tyler or Molly? Mike? You're on mute, Mike.
Taylor, it sounds like the concerns you're expressing around the lunchroom are about students wanting to be able to sit with their friends. Okay.
That is somewhat what it is. but it also, a lot of students aren't exactly pleased with sitting not in the cafeteria, just because they have to get lunch, and then they'll have to go to the small gym or the student center, whichever is open or the big gym, whichever is open that day, and they'll have to go and eat in there, and it's not not as pleasant from what I've heard.
I have heard other students concerned that there's not adequate social distancing going on at lunch in the cafeteria, and they are relieved to be able to go to the other sites because that's where they can feel like they have adequate distance between them during a period where they don't have a mask on. So I think your idea of gathering some more data about different, but because the group of students is like the community, there's different people with different opinions.
There's
And,
yeah.
Your idea of gathering some more information is probably a good approach.
Yeah, there's two sides to the coin, and I really have only heard from the one side, so I want to make sure I can get ideas from the both, just to see like what we can do to fix that.
Molly, I have a question for you. I'm wondering, we see lots of different signs. I turn on my computer for school and it tells you, wash your hands and do all of these things. Is there any way to perhaps get an art class to actually show what the mask should look like, that it does need to cover the nose and the mouth, and maybe a student project, something along that line that could be posted around the school or in spots where students will see them?
Well, there are signs around that say, like the signs you see from the CDC and all of those things. There are signs around, but unfortunately, I feel like people there's so many signs around for different things that people don't really look at them anymore, and they're just kind of there.
Tyler, you commented about lunches being different. How are they different?
So they're like prepackaged lunches. Well, prepackaged is not really the word to explain it, but the way the lunches are handed out, it was like when they were handing them out when we were all virtual. Like you would go and you would pick up the lunches. That's what it is.
Okay.
And people are saying that it's smaller portions, which it somewhat is, and you're not able to get extras or anything. Which I know there are some students who do want to buy extras because the food doesn't fill them up enough, and that's mainly their concern, is it's not exactly what they want. And there are also meals from last year that they can't bring back just because of the way it's being run. Like the popcorn chicken bowl, they can't really serve that. And I know a lot of students really did like the popcorn chicken bowl, and I think they just want the old lunches back.
So we're not serving hot lunches.
No, they are hot lunches. It's just the choices are much less than what they usually are. Like, it's like every other day. It's like there's a ham sandwich. I can remember the ham sandwich and the pork sandwiches. We always have those at least once or twice a week.
Right.
There's not much of a variety going on as of now, but
is there a reason? Does anybody know? Is there a reason why lunches are different?
I'm not entirely sure, but we could always ask.
Jan, I think a lot of it has to do with the open pots and kettles and scoops of this and scoops of that and pile of spaghetti with sauce and things like that. So much. I mean, even when you go to other places, it's a lot of prepackaged and things with wrappers around it to prevent COVID spread and things like that. So just a lot of protocols everywhere have also hit the food service industry too.
Okay.
Any other questions? We can tell that Tyler and Molly are really good at remote learning because they're the masters of muting and unmuting themselves in a timely fashion. If we could all learn from them, we would be in much better shape.
Good job.
All right, Tyler, Molly, thank you very much for that report. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Martin for his superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments from Molly and Tyler, and of course Jim's presentation was very well done. I was going to remind the board of Hemeter's blue ribbon designation from the National Federation, and you folks beat me to that. So the thing I'm also disappointed in is that of all the years this has been happening, Hemeter was cheated out of a trip to the White House to honor them for their achievement with Mr. Bailey and a couple of his teachers, and that would have certainly been a wonderful honor. So we'll Jamie and I are trying to figure out some ways that we can help support them to get some more recognition. Before I dive into my regular report, I did wanted to highlight the notification that came out from Lori Duncan about our thespian teams. Finished in first and second place at the regional festival. They will be featured at the state festival on this Saturday, the 13th. So congratulations to Lori and to her kids at the levels. A lot of excellent and superior ratings, and that's very hard to do during COVID when the kids have been at home in remote learning and things like that. So I don't know if Kenny has any more comments. Yeah, he happens to know the theater teacher, so he may have some more details.
Just happen to know her. What I do want to highlight is that the kids have had to tackle all new technology in a whole new way to present their art. So think of it as a Zoom call, because that's what they're doing. Some schools have chosen to go on stage and have a camera, pretty far away and distancing with masks. A few, and Heritage included, has decided to use technology to its fullest. They are using Zoom, but we think of Zoom as like the squares we're looking at now. They have it to where they've got a program where you can move those around. You can have this background where it looks like they're, in a sense, being presented on the screen together in the same space. And that art that's happening in the background is created by students. So there's this art with these clouds and these moving trees. That's all being created by students' art. So they're using graphic art, they're using video, and they're using sound and technology to kind of present in a new way in a COVID time. So, and any of those actors in the Heritage sense, they're in different rooms in the building because they do have to record it all at once. You can't do any editing. It has to be live. But they're all in physically different rooms within the White Pine, and they're presenting live in this kind of really cool way, real presentable way. So it was very creative, and certainly brought in a lot of technology and a lot of tech influence into the arts.
So taking something that's already very complex and adding a whole nother layer of complexity to it. So that's very impressive. Our kids are doing some pretty amazing things under the leadership of Mrs. Duncan. So congratulations.
Another good thing about this is that because it is recorded and submitted, these are things I'm pretty sure, I guess I'll have to check with Lori, that other people can see, right? You don't typically have to physically be present at regionals or states. These are kind of things that I'm sure Lori will make available if licensing allows. I may be off on the licensing thing.
Wonderful. Congratulations to them. Just a couple of short updates on COVID. First of all, I wanted to thank Mary Dorr, Dr. Kayla Ramasamy, Janine Coughlin, Mike Colucci, Dr. Vicky Wanmacher, Jim Mitchell, and the list goes on, so many others, for your hard work organizing last week's vaccine clinic for Saginaw Township employees. There was an awful lot of work that went on ahead of that program to make that happen, and I appreciate all of you for diving in and helping us work out the logistics and all the details, and it ran absolutely beautifully. Thank you to so many of our volunteers. You folks were there that day and helped make sure things ran smoothly, and there was certainly a positive spirit in the district around that event. We're looking forward to our next dose. According to Great Lakes Bay Health Center, has scheduled our second dose of the vaccine for Saturday, March 6th for our school employees. This is 5 weeks after the first dose. They were already booked with another school district on the 4-week mark, but they said that it's still well within the CDC guidelines for vaccine administration. We're working with the Saginaw County Health Department regarding the first dose for those who missed our clinic. We're getting conflicting information from both sets, and so they're meeting tomorrow to work out some details, and they're going to let us know, because I know that's a concern of a lot of our people. MHSA winter guidelines were revised again last week upon Thursday's MDHHS modification of the shutdown order. Starting today, basketball, ice hockey, competitive cheer, and wrestling may now participate in physical contact at practice, and they may also begin competing against other schools, providing that masks are worn in practice and during competition. If masks are unable to be worn, participants must be regularly tested. And Athletic Director Justin Thorington is working with the Saginaw County Health Department to iron out the details with the testing program. Season-ending tournaments in these sports have been shifted later into late March and early April to compensate for the later start time. So I know this has been a highly publicized piece. We had some kids that were extremely frustrated that some folks in Lansing couldn't come to agreement on how all that was going to work. So we're pleased for our kids. We're pleased for our coaches. They dove in head first today, and I think they're excited about getting some competition against other schools. I believe many of our teams kick off tomorrow night, so we're excited for them.
Bruce?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. You mentioned that there's, and I read this in the guidelines, there's an alternative to wearing a mask, which is getting regularly tested. At whose expense would this regular testing take place? Is that something the district has to cover, or the individual, or is that not clear at this point?
My understanding is the state's going to provide the testing for us to help make sure our kids are able to continue. So I don't believe there's any cost for the testing to the district. We piloted that back in December with our swim team as they were preparing for state competition, kind of helped work out the bugs. And then MHSAA took that small pilot with football and swim and one other sport that escapes me, volleyball. And then now they've extrapolated that into the larger setting with, I know wrestling is one that it's just impossible to wear a mask as you're wrestling due to the physical nature of, arms and legs and everything. So they will be tested. I believe our hockey teams have a shield that goes inside their helmets, similar to the football program. So there'll be some different things that I know they're concerned about competitive cheer with some of the tosses and stunts and tumbling and things like that. So they've worked out a system that basically, in very simple terms, and I'm making it way too simple, you either need to wear a mask or you need to be tested, kind of with a couple of variations. Mr. Jaffe mentioned the in-person school board meetings. Unfortunately, as badly as we'd all like to be together for these, we cannot until at least the 22nd, depending on how they handle that. And then finally, all in all, we're very pleased with how smoothly the return to learning plan has transitioned. We're obviously still observing, analyzing, and addressing areas that we can improve upon. Jamie and I and Jim and Steve and Mike and everybody have been out in the buildings quite a bit, meeting with staff and with administrators. Everything from pulling into the parking lot and dropping kids off in the morning to lunch periods to whatever we can do to help support them, just to make them run a little bit smoother. Our principals have been doing a great job managing their buildings and trying to work out some of those small kinks. We did have a student test positive over the weekend from Hemeter. After social contact tracing, it was determined we're going to shift the classroom and the teacher to remote learning for 2 weeks. While we know we will have occasional positive tests and quarantines, just like all school districts have been having, our primary goal is to minimize them so that our students can remain healthy, first of all, and continue their learning. Our virtual families have also transitioned into second semester very smoothly. I know Jamie and the virtual teachers hosted a parent training program last week, if not the week before, just for those Those parents have been working all fall with our virtual programs to get a refresher and get some questions answered. And then we did have some families that are brand new that switched over to virtual. And so it was a brand new orientation for them. So far, so good. There certainly is, I hate to use the term again, but there certainly is a positive spirit as you're out and about and seeing the staff interacting with our students again. It's brought a lot of energy and fun back to the buildings again. So that's all I have from a formal standpoint. If there are any questions.
Any questions for Bruce? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. According to what I see, there are 3 comments on the public submissions. Assuming that we can pull them up, I'm going to ask Jan to read row number 3, Tony to read number 4, and Mike to read row number 5.
All right, row number 3. Christina Malfer, 12 Logmark Place, Saginaw, Michigan. As the STEA Vice President, I hear about the great things our STCS teachers are doing during this pandemic. Our isolation has caused a disconnect among colleagues, administration, and Board of Education. Here's a shout out to 3 of our teachers in addition to teaching the curriculum. Mrs. Call has taught her class sign language, celebrated Mickey Mouse's birthday, had imagination time on Fridays, building with Legos, playing instruments, designing inventions, etc. Searched for state quarters and enjoyed a cup of hot cocoa over the computer screen. Mrs. Lester sent handwritten postcards to my 103 students at the beginning of the school year and again during the holidays. She also sent gift cards and other prizes during distance learning to my students through the mail to help kids keep motivated. Mrs. Julian and Mrs. McLean held a virtual writing center, which allowed students to receive the individualized attention they need when writing essays and research papers. During a year of challenges and uncertainties, our teachers have stepped up to be there for students. I look forward to sharing about more teachers in the future.
Fantastic. Next one is Suzanne Dole, 625 Plymouth Road. The president and the governor has stated in-person learning is viable as long as safety precautions are in place. Per your decision, schools are back to in-person learning, and it's acknowledged by you and your board last month that safety precautions are not in place and are not possible, such as social distancing. While masks are worn, they are frequently not in place in the classroom. Example, meals and snack breaks, at least in the elementary. In the lower grade levels, children are elbow to elbow at round tables. Why can't round tables be replaced by desks? With that being said, would you please include the number of students and teachers quarantined on the STCS website? I would think that would be an important statistic to capture. I have heard and am seeking clarifications that White Pine is telling parents if a student has a fever over several days, the student doesn't need COVID testing, but just needs to be fever-free and have a physician slip to return to school. Is this correct? I would think testing would be encouraged. Thank you for your consideration.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Sarah Somerset. Oh no, Sarah F. Okay, street address is Somerset, Saginaw, Michigan. Her role is guardian. While I realize we made choices to be in person or not, I am still so disappointed by the lack of concern by our board members in putting kids and teachers of all grade levels back in full face-to-face, knowing and admitting that basic guidelines for distancing could not be met. We love our school and want to be nowhere else, but expect our school board to make safety standards as priority, and you aren't. So here we are with full classes in quarantine again, and concerned families and teachers needing to figure out the next 10 days while hopefully staying healthy. If you would please consider distancing guidelines, dividers for shared tables, at least during meals, and mask-free times. At least we could come close to a better safety plan. Please share quarantine data openly on the site as well. A single case does not reflect an accurate picture of how schools are impacted. Listen to your teachers' concerns and ideas and help implement their classroom suggestions, please.
Thank you for reading those comments, and thank you to those who submitted them. I know one of the things that I miss about being virtual, and since COVID, is the Starfish Awards. And I look forward to being able to start doing those again when we can recognize some of the great things that are going on with our staff at our meetings. With that, I will adjourn the Committee of the Whole meeting, and we'll move directly into our short special meeting. And if we could get roll call again, please.
Mary Ann Bird,
Here.
Jan Collison,
Here.
Michael Colucci,
Here.
Janine Coughlin,
Present.
Tony Duncan,
Here.
David Jaffe,
Here.
Eric Smith here, Tyler Berry,
Here.
Molly Jaffe.
Here.
All right, first, we need to approve our agenda for the meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Is there a second?
Second.
Mike, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Janine Coughlin,
Yes.
Mike Colucci,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Jan Collison,
Yes.
David Jaffe,
Yes.
Mary Ann Bird,
Yes.
Eric Smith, yes.
Next is approval of our minutes of both the regular and closed meeting on January 25th, and they can be taken together. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann. Is there a second?
Second.
Support.
Jan, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Eric Smith, yes. Mary Ann Bird,
Yes.
David Jaffe,
Yes.
Jan Collison,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Mike Colucci,
Yes.
Janine Coughlin,
Yes.
Okay. Next is approval of district credit card invoices. Is there a motion? Mary Ann?
I move that the Saginaw Township Board of Education approve the district credit card invoices in the amount of $3,854.10.
Support.
Janine, thank you. Is there discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Eric Smith, yes. David Jaffe,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Janine Coughlin,
Yes.
Mike Colucci,
Yes.
Jan Collison,
Yes.
Mary Ann Bird.
Yes.
And finally, on the agenda for the special meeting is the appointment of an administrator. Is there a motion? Mike?
I move that the Board of Education employ Lori L. Puckett as the district's communication specialist beginning in the 2020-2021 school year. This appointment of the communication specialist is conditional until the district administration receives and verifies to its satisfaction all of the required information and qualifications pertaining to her.
Is there support?
Support.
Tony? Discussion?
Looks like she has an impressive background.
I totally agree. I was wondering if somebody could either summarize or highlight, the reason why we chose Lori. I mean, the write-up itself is impressive to begin with.
Well, quite frankly, there was only one criteria according to Mrs. Bird, and that was University of Michigan graduate. She was the only one, so we gave her the job.
Okay.
There's an Eric.
We have no idea if she has any skills or any knowledge, but she graduated from U of M.
Didn't go to Ohio State, so she's good, okay?
Yeah. Actually, we ended up with 30 applications for the job, which I was very pleased with. We went through paper screening, interviewed 13 out of the 30. We had a committee that met with the 13 in the first round. We brought 3 candidates back for a second round interview with another committee. Went through that process on Friday while the district was closed. They were kind enough to come in and join us in spite of the slippery roads. Then our committee met, debriefed, and went through the process, slept on it over the weekend, and then today I made reference calls and was able to flesh out mid-afternoon that Lori was our choice. She has conditionally accepted a tentative offer based on the board approval. She is currently working with her employer to talk about a potential transition date. She knows we're interested as soon as possible. There's some paperwork and fingerprinting and things like that that need to happen before we can bring her on board. But we're just very pleased. She's been in the business for about 25 years, has a wide variety of background, everything from on-air news anchor at a TV station to producer, director, very strong background in sales and marketing, communications, a little bit of everything. So we had all 13 of the people that we brought in for interviews do a couple of different kinds of writing samples for us under a timeline, a 45-minute timeline. They had to create a flyer for our families and a formal press release on some subjects. We feel very good about this. These people have gone through what we consider to be a pretty complex process, and I'm excited to have you meet Lori. If she is approved tonight, we'll bring her back and start introducing her, and I think you'll be pleased with her vision for where this communication overall strategic plan needs to go. She's already noticed some things on our website that if she gets the job, she'll play with. But yet she's also been very honoring the work that so many people have done to try to be the unofficial communications department in the district. The 25 of us that all pitch in to try to help that. It'll be nice to have that centrally focused, and especially with somebody with her impressive background.
So, Bruce, you mentioned the urgency, obviously, of getting someone like that in. If you had a ballpark time frame for having her start, what would you put that at? Assuming that everything moves forward as it should, and everything goes through. Are we looking at a month, 2 months, a week?
My gut's telling me it'll be a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. Yeah, that's very encouraging. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call.
Janine Coughlin.
Yes.
Eric Smith, yes. Marion Bird.
Yes.
Jan Collison.
Yes.
David Jaffe.
Yes.
Tony Duncan.
Yes.
Mike Colucci.
Yes.
Well,
outstanding. I appreciate that greatly, and if I could also mention, I appreciate the work that Mrs. Bird helped me back at the very beginning. I walked through a spreadsheet with her of names and backgrounds, and with her being so heavily involved with the SVSU and the Delta College English and Communications departments, she was able to identify some people that she was aware of, people with particular backgrounds that would work really well, people with backgrounds that might not work as well, because somebody like me who's not in that field, it might look impressive on an application, but she was able to kind of decipher and read between the lines on some of that. So I greatly appreciate her work. That was back at the very beginning of this process, and it was extremely helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Lori, if you're watching the feed tonight, congratulations. Welcome to Saginaw Township Schools. We look forward to meeting with you, and welcome to our team. With that, it's the second chance for public comment this evening. Looking at the spreadsheet, I don't see any additional comments, so it doesn't look like we have any additional comments. So with that in mind, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mary Ann, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Dan,
Support.
thanks. Any discussion? Okay, one more roll call, please.
Mary Ann Bird,
Yes.
Jan Collison,
Yes.
Mike Galucci,
Yes.
Janine Coughlin,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
David Jaffe,
Yes?
Eric Smith, yes.
Hopefully we'll all be able to meet together in person on February 22nd. More updates to that on that to come, although we may not have an update until very close to the meeting because the current order doesn't expire until the day before. So
Okay.
watch your email and we'll keep in touch and let you know what the format's going to be. But thank you all for being here tonight and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.